Thank you very much, Ambassador Bach. Thank you very much for being here in the Diplomat in Spain. Thank you for welcoming us in the embassy.
Thank you for having me, and I'm very glad to have this opportunity to meet you and to talk to you about Korea, and I hope that it will be useful for both of us to understand and know Korea a bit better.
Sure, I'm sure it will.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, 2020 in December last year, it was when you came to the embassy. I wanted to ask you, how has your time been here in Spain so far?
Already I have been here in this beautiful country for almost 10 months, which are very much appreciative and very much useful. And even though I was very much welcomed by Philomena in the first stage, but I have been enjoying my time and my service here in Madrid and other parts of Spain very much. And I'm very much appreciative of the very warm-hearted people of Spain and the very good hospitality that Spanish people have rendered to me. And as a official in the Diplomat, I'm always enjoying my posting, but I have a very special privilege of serving in this great country, and then every day it is my great pleasure to know better, and the more I know, the better I feel.
Wonderful, thank you very much. In addition to Philomena, which welcomed you at the first stage, I'm very sorry about that. Also, many other things have happened.
Oh, yeah.
We were recently talking about the series, the Squid Game, which became so famous recently. Have you seen it?
Yes, I have seen it with great interest and with great satisfaction. And now the Squid Game is all over the world, and it is very much loved by the whole world. And I'm very glad that the Squid Game carries some characters and some the beauties of the Korean culture and the Korean the people and the Korean society. And I hope that this program can be of help for the world to understand better about Korea, and at the same time, the reason why it is very popular all throughout the globe is that it is very universal in touching the code that all the humanity have in common.
Okay, wonderful. So I believe it's good promotion for your country. I'm sure many more people will still be watching it for some months now.
Yeah, in fact, I'm very glad that so many the Spanish people are enjoying the Korean culture. For example, the K-pop, the K-movies, dramas, even Korean food and Korean cosmetics. And among them, as you said, that the Squid Game is part of the Korean dramas, which are very among Spanish people are very popular. And even with that, I feel very much glad that more and more Spanish people are showing great interest about Korea, and then they try to learn Korean language, and then they try to know better about Korea, and even so many Spanish people have visited Korea as tourists, and vice versa. And so many Koreans are very much interested in the Spanish country, Spanish culture, Spanish wine, Spanish football. Even in Korea, probably you will be fascinated that your La Liga is telecast live in Korea, and so actually there are 7-hour difference. So usually the game takes place at 9 p.m. here in Madrid, here in Spain.
Yeah, exactly.
But that means that 4 a.m. in Korea.
And people still watch it.
Still watching.
Okay.
Yes, and so that shows that how the Koreans are very much enjoying the Spanish. The culture and Spanish sport and Spanish the people, and then the import of the Spanish wine is on the rise, and then you can easily find some Spanish restaurants in Seoul. So it is in the good sense. I mean, I feel it's a very encouraging and a good sign in the sense that by knowing about each other. Our mutual understanding on each other will be improved, and then by doing so, the two countries and two people can get even closer.
Okay, okay. Actually, 2020, it was the 70th anniversary of the reopening of relations between South Korea and Spain.
Right.
That was, we could say that was pretty much a diplomatic celebration. But after what you just mentioned, we could say that this is the highest point of let's say, sorry,
Our relationship.
Your relationship in terms of people actually knowing who South Koreans are and South Koreans knowing who Spaniards are.
As you rightly mentioned, actually we have already enjoyed now the 71st year of our bilateral relationship here. And then you said that yes, last year we celebrated the 70th anniversary of our bilateral relationship. But if I just put it quite in a structured manner, the 70 years as a, yes, definitely very friendly, cooperative relationship. But to be more accurate, for the first 30 years, actually, there were not that significant exchanges or the cooperative projects with each other. So the first 30 years means that about 50s through the 70s. At that time, both Spain and Korea were under some authoritative regime, and then both of us tried hard to get even better economy to make some economic progress. And the following stage, number two, if I just put it, and it can be 80s and 90s.
Okay.
Those areas are for both of us. We were a bit, rising rather than the past, meaning that you became the member of the European Commission, and you became the NATO member, and then also Korea, we became the member of the OECD, and then you also hosted in 1992 the Olympics in Barcelona.
True.
At the same time, 4 years earlier, we also hosted the Seoul Olympic Games in the city of Seoul.
Exactly.
So that is, let's see if I just put it on the second phase of our bilateral relationship. We were rising, for both of us, and then we were getting into the international arena more vividly. And then if I just put it now, I think that we are on the stage 3, meaning that it is after the year 2000. In this 21st century, both of us are now already, we are playing a very key roles for both of us in the international arena, and then now both of us have become a very important player in the global arena in many aspects. We have become the key members of the international community in many areas. G20, where we keep. Yes, Korea is a member of the G20's the meetings, and the Spain is continuing to participate in the meeting as a special guest. And in terms of the economy and the trade and the bilateral relationship has been getting higher and higher and higher. And I understand that that was partly because the Spanish the new Spanish eyes against the Asia. In the past, the Spanish the focus of the foreign policy is basically upon the European Union, and of course you are watching very closely and continuing the developing the relationship with the Latin America. But relatively, your focus on Asia was rather, some a bit far from being the enough. But now, you have the own eyes on Asia. That you are increasingly, you are raising increasingly the attention and the focus on the Asia. So that has allowed for our two countries to get even better related, and then our bilateral the exchanges and the cooperation between our two countries is getting better. And then, as you said, this year, my president visited, even despite the pandemic, my president visited Spain, and then 2 years ago, His Majesty the King visited Korea to celebrate the 70th anniversary of our bilateral relationship. And this year's Mr. President Moon's visit was a return visit to His Majesty's visit to Korea. So it was done only 1 year and 8 months after the visit of His Majesty. So that shows how our two countries are close, and how we value each other. So I think that on the occasion of the presidential visit this June, our relationship has been upgraded to strategic partnership. So now we are enjoying the strategic partnership. So based upon this strategic partnership, I think that we will be able to find out more areas of cooperation that we can develop our mutual cooperation.
I'm sure. After all the facts that you just mentioned, it's clear that relations are getting higher and higher year by year. But how does that translate into the economic field? How is there any economic area which do you believe that South Korea and Spain will there be economic relations that will increase in coming years?
Yes, in terms of economic and trade, we are still enjoying a good relationship, but still, like I said, that we can find many more areas of cooperation. But now, in terms of trade, last year was an exception because of the COVID, but in year 2019, it was the highest in terms of our trade volume. We enjoyed the $5.5 billion. Is that from Korean side, we exported $2.8 billion to Spain, while we imported $2.7 billion. So it's almost just the same. So we don't need to the quarter about or complain about the trade deficit. So we are almost the balanced trade we are enjoying. And in terms of the investment, by now the total amount of investment between our two countries is $5 billion, and then from Korea to Spain, $2 billion, and from Spain to Korea, $3 billion. It is fine. But the areas that you said that what areas that we can develop our bilateral, let's say, economic cooperation. In the past, we were focusing on the, let's say, some manufacturing areas. But now, after the COVID, the Korean government, after post-COVID blueprint, my government put forward last year a Korean New Deal. And the Korean New Deal is the two key pillars of this Korean New Deal is Digital New Deal and Green New Deal. Okay. So those are two are the key in the Korean New Deal. But at the same time, I was very surprised to learn that Spanish government also the announced kind of blueprint in the post-COVID era that is almost identical with the Koreans. That was the it is ELP 2050. It is Estratégica de Descarbonización a Largo Plazo.
Exactly.
That's like carbon neutral plan, and at the same time the Agenda Digital España 2025 is the like digital New Deal, and the first one was the like Green New Deal. So quite very identically, our two countries have their long-term vision for the country. So that shows the window of opportunities that our two countries can develop further areas.
Exactly.
It is so in the digital area and it's green area.
Okay.
So going green and going digital, those are the very broad and key elements that our two countries can cooperate together.
They both are very related to the
Exactly,
future,
exactly.
and it seems a coincidence that
Exactly.
both countries
That's right.
are actually
Yeah.
walking in the same direction.
Yeah. So I think that is partly because our economic development level are almost identical. Yeah.
Exactly.
If Korea is ahead and abroad, and then I don't think that we can have the same or almost identical plan with a country in Africa, because the stage of economic development is different. But now Spain and Korea, actually we are almost the same level of economic development, which is can be a very let's say positive and encouraging the dimension that we can
That's great
make
news.
use of.
That's great news. Let's jump now back to your side of the ocean. Okay, I wanted to ask you about North Korea. Last Monday, South Korea and North Korea reopened communication channels
Right.
between each other,
Right.
which is obviously great news for your countries. But almost 3 weeks ago, North Korea sent some demonstrations
Right.
of missiles testing.
Right.
And also South Korea did as well, which makes us all think that tensions are still very relevant between both countries. And I wanted to ask you, could you tell us more about current tensions between your both countries?
Sure. If I just put it simply, the current the South-North relationship is now undergoing some stalemate. Yes, and then our relationship between North Korea is temporarily stuck.
Okay.
As you see that in year 2018 and 2019, there were some series of bilateral summit meetings between South and North Korea and the United States.
Okay.
Then at the time, we had high expectations of moving forward the so-called Korean peace process, and then that was quite widely shared by South Korea, North Korea, and the United States. But after the Hanoi meeting, when so-called big deal was not made at the time, this expectation was decreased, and by since then, no significant progress has been made on the Korean Peninsula. And for us, we are still trying to make progress in this the peace process with the close collaboration with the United States, who is the very important for the peace process to make success. You said that yes, in September, the North Korea made a series of some launches of cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, and some days later, as a Korean, yes, we test fired the SLBM, submarine launched ballistic missile, and then some say that it is now the tension is still there, and but I must say that as you rightly said that this week on 4th of September, yes, the so-called hotline between our two South and North have been restored, and then it is a very good sign, and in the sense that it can facilitate the kind of resumption of the bilateral talks or approaches between South and North. and the fact that at the UN General Assembly, my president attended there, and he made a quite proposal of the end of war declaration. So that was to put an end to the 70-year-old war state into the armistice. I'm sorry, it's putting an end to the war state. And then that on that proposal, the Kim Yo-jong, who is the sister of the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, reacted quite favorably, saying that it was a good idea. So we see that some window of opportunity for both of us to resume our some close contacts, and then even she did not rule out the possibility of having a summit between South and North. So we see it with a very we are taking it very seriously,
Okay.
and then we hope that we can see some progress in this process. And you mentioned the launch of the SLBM following the North Korean the launch of the missiles, but it was a coincidence. Yeah, in fact, frankly it was a very coincidence, because the test launch was already scheduled.
I see.
Yeah. So actually, I do know the information, but the test launch was already fixed almost some weeks ago.
Exactly.
But because it happened after the launch of the North Korean missiles, but it can be seen as a kind of
a response.
response.
But it was a
Yeah,
response.
it was definitely not the case.
Okay. Also, I was going to ask you in relation to the missile testing. It's something which could differentiate Spain from South Korea is that South Korea, by its particular circumstances, the military force is more present in the daily in the daily lives of people than in Spain. And I wanted to ask you, does South Korea really believe that military force demonstrations are necessary?
Unlike Europe, where the collective defense system is in place, the security environment of Asia is totally different from that.
I see.
In the case of Asia, especially in Northeast Asia, where the Korean Peninsula is located, we lack of the very stable the security order, and then the security situation, the actual security situation, is still volatile. So we wanted to see the as a bit more peaceful and stable the Korean Peninsula. The military the demonstration is that we are keeping our military presence, but in terms of military demonstrations, we believe that by demonstrating our military presence and military might, we want to have the deterrence effect, the vis-a-vis the possible the miscalculation by some directly the North Korea, and so basically the main purpose of the military demonstration is first have the deterrence effect vis-a-vis North Korea, and at the same time the assurance giving to the South Korean people that our country is militarily fully and well equipped and prepared. So by doing so, we can assure our South Korean people that you don't have to worry about the security situation. You are totally being protected by us. So that was the dual purpose game, but dual purpose the action, but not to invite the let's say some military miscalculation or some arms race. Not at all.
I see. I see. Okay, keep on talking about the relations that you have geographically close to your country. I wanted to ask you about China, which Vice Defense Minister Park Jae-in recently said, some weeks ago, that relations between China and South Korea were back on the right track. So I wanted to ask you, how are your relations now with China, which is a country which with you have had complicated relations?
Right. Yeah, China is a very important partner for us in the sense that China has a great influence on the Korean peace process on the Korean Peninsula, and at the same time, China is our #1 trading partner. Then with China, we established our diplomatic relations in 1992. So next year we will celebrate 30 years of our bilateral relationship, and then year 2008, our bilateral relationship has been upgraded. The strategic cooperation partnership. So based upon that, we are now developing the very cooperative relationship in many areas, the politically of course, and the trade, investment, tourism, the scientific, many. And we believe that China has is a key player in the global area, global stage in many aspects, and then especially for us it is one of the key stakeholders on the Korean Peninsula, so we need to keep our bilateral relationship in a very sound and the stable manner. And then, as you may know, last month, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited, and then he paid a courteous visit to my president. Then he had a bilateral meeting with his Korean counterpart, the Foreign Minister Jung Eui-yong of Korea, and then they discussed the various issues of mutual interest, including of course the North Korea, and then we agreed to a future-oriented bilateral relationship. So, like I said, Korea is a very important partner for Korea. China is a good important partner for Korea, and then we will see that we will, develop our bilateral relationship with China in a sound and productive manner.
Okay, that's good news for both countries, definitely.
Sure.
And you mentioned trade earlier on, and when we talk about trade and South Korea, we also need to talk about that you are the second country, the top 2 country, which manufactures microchips, which is one of the highest or strongest crisis at the moment, because microchips are pretty much everywhere. And I wanted to ask you, do you know? We already know that this crisis will be taking at least 3 or 4 months to get over, but do you know why it's so complicated to get over this crisis at this moment?
As you may know, actually, the producers of microchips are basically like twofold. One is the fab list, and the other is foundry. The fab list is basically the designers. So designing companies, they are huge, but they make much more money. Foundry is the companies, especially the manufacturers of the ordered the semiconductors. Samsung Electronics is now one of the key foundries. As you see, TSMC, the Taiwanese,
Taiwan, exactly.
Taiwan semiconductor. TSMC is number one in the world.
Exactly.
They are occupying almost 54 or 55% of
Exactly,
the
of
total
global population.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And Samsung Electronics is number two. But for them, for foundries, they need the huge manufacturing facilities. So without these huge facilities, they cannot produce those the microchips. But since they need these huge manufacturing facilities, even with the rising demand, they cannot produce in a timely manner. So that's why it takes a long time to increase this amount of the semiconductors they produce.
Is it a matter of space?
Yeah,
Does South Korea need more space to produce more microchips?
Exactly. So that is why now because of this the technical problem, so still it will take time for them, as far as they do not expand those facilities, and then it is not possible for them to produce. Actually, they are running their factories very hard, but because of the capacity of production, they have some difficulties in producing more.
Okay, so if that's the actual issue to produce more microchips, does the government have any plans to expand its microchip production either nationally or internationally?
Well, as you see in Korea, there are several the semiconductor manufacturers. Of course, the Samsung Electronics is one of them, and SK Hynix is also a big producer of those microchips. But as you know, those are all private the companies, so the government cannot, let's say, lead them to do so. But as far as I know, it is a business decision, the activities. But as far as I know, the Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, they do have their own plan to increase the production of those. In the sense that in May this year, the Samsung Electronics already they made it clear that they would invest $17 billion in the United States, and in the coming 3 years, they will also put $200 billion to step up the capacity to produce the microchips.
Okay.
So that's the good news. And then at the same time, the SK Hynix, SK Hynix also, SK Hynix is also one of the top the producers of the microchips in the world, and then they also have a plan to expand their R&D center in Silicon Valley in the United States. And so they already declared that they will put $1 billion. Yeah. And then also they will put more money in their facilities in Korea. So those two big giants already made it clear that they would put more money in for producing those semiconductors, and then it will definitely contribute to this crisis, to solve this crisis.
Okay, wonderful. And now, in order to conclude the interview, I wanted to get back to talk about relations between countries, but I wanted to ask you, what does South Korea think of the current relations between Europe, the US, and China at the moment? At the moment, we could say that those three are the main three players, even though they aren't three. But how does South Korea see the current situation?
Well, as you said, yes, the United States and China and European Union are the main and key players throughout the globe. And then, as you see, the three are the main players in the international relationship in terms of trade, finance, technological order. So international political order, international economic order, international trade order, economic financial order, and economic technological order. Three of you are the key main players who can make great influence all over the world, whole world, including Korea. As for us, the United States is the only ally for Korea. Actually, Korea has only ally is the U.S. China, like I said, is the largest trading partner for Korea in terms of the trade, but at the same time, in political sense, it is the key player who can make a very direct contribution to the Korean Peninsula peace process, which my government is pushing forward. European Union is a long-time friend, and but the European Union as a whole can affect many equations of the whole world. So for us, since we do not have that kind of, let's say, that level of influence or
relevance.
Both three of you are the key members, but
Okay.
For us, we want to see that it's a bit quite principled approach, but three of you can work out in a very mutually beneficial way how to deal with the global challenges. But in specific cases, in specific matters, you may differ on some issues. For example, some international trade system, the WTO. Then probably China can have a different view. Yeah.
It tends to have it.
Yes. And then, but while the U.S. and the European Union, yes, you highly value the WTO. But on any, for example, 5G issues, and then the U.S. and the European Union have a different approach, while the China wants to see that their so-called Huawei to be used throughout the world or something like that. So. For us, we do not want to, let's say, I'm not saying we are taking side with it, but we just want to see that those big players, key players, can come up with some more harmonious way to deal with the global the common global challenges together.
Common and coming.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Wonderful. So this is the end of the interview. Thank you very much, Ambassador Pat, for welcoming us. It was a pleasure to interview, and you are very welcome to get back to the Diplomat in Spain for whatever you need.
Yeah.
We'll be there for you.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I already have a very good friend here, so I look forward to the close cooperation and the contact with you. And then, if I may just say that, for the newcomers, from my colleagues in the embassy, as well as the new ambassadors, I recommend him or her. Okay, why don't you subscribe this to Diplomat every day, even weekends. You can enjoy reading those articles. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.